What's up guys, it's Phil here, and in this one we're going to be talking about the niche build that I've come up with in Borderlands 4. I call it the Gambochet, and it's niche because it's a build that relies on one weapon, and the build for it can vary greatly. I've made a couple of builds to mess around with, and this one is very much the best I've been able to do, but if you find another, I'd love if you wanted to share it with me. Now, let's get into the build. And this one is a little bit different than the other builds that you may have seen on YouTube, on like certain websites like Mobalytics and Maxroll. This one is going to be more based around one single gun in particular, and that gun is going to be the King's Gambit pistol. Now, what is so special about this pistol is it will ricochet any damage put its way, including indirect projectiles, which ties into the Priestbreaker cannons, which is why our build is 49 points into the red skill tree. Now, I will go over a little bit more of this build, some of the choices I made, and I will let you determine if you want to try this out. It's a little bit more niche. It might not melt certain bosses as quick as you might like, but it definitely gets the job done, and it's going to save you a lot of headache in the long run if you manage to get a really good King's Gambit, which is the 2800 damage as well as the 4 magazine size, which allows for more throws quicker. You also can just reload it after firing one shot, but you're going to waste a lot more ammo that way. The shots actually end up dealing quite a bit of damage, especially when we're spec'd into Riddle You This, which does for some reason scale along with the Peacebreaker cannons, as damage from Peacebreakers seems to proc this. So I'll go over the guns, I'll go over the equipment, I'll go over the firmware, I'll go over the build, and then we'll go into the specializations and we'll wrap it up there. So first of all is obviously the King's Gambit. This is a very simple one. You farm it from the Vial prototype located in Terminus range, and it's not a super common drop. I had a lot of trouble getting one. You do want to farm this, and you do want it to drop with 2800 damage, 2.8k, and you want it to drop with the 4 magazine size. Now, the other weapons I use are less important here, but I do have them signed in on here on this website, which is maxroll.gg, I believe. And I'm using a bod, just a very simple one that has SMG as alternate ammo. It's very good for mobbing. It's not so good for bosses, but one of the things you can do is you can throw the King's Gambit and then fire the bod directly into the ricochets. Now, along with that, I also have a shock wombo. This is very good for certain bosses, and it's very good for certain mobbing areas where you just need a lot of explosions very quickly. Along with that, to finish it out, I just have a basic Chaosin, and it's pretty self-explanatory. SMG blow up, go burr. Now, for equipment, I do have the triple bypass with the accelerator, because you want to keep the Peacebreakers up as much as possible. We are spec'd into that a little bit in the tree. Now, along with that, you want a mini triple bypass if possible, so that the cooldown is a lot quicker. It's 16 seconds compared to the typical 28 seconds, I believe, that a triple bypass is. And with the 3 charges, you pretty much can instantly get back Peacebreakers, provided you haven't used it for actual healing, which the survivability in the tree will tie into later with the shield, but that's that. I'm also using a fire pot, not anything special. You don't need a special roll on this. I just have it so that it deals a little bit of extra damage. Because it does tie in a little bit with our life steals for survivability. Now, I also do have a devastating dancer. Mine in particular has health regen and cooldown rate. I am currently farming for a kinetic one, preferably one with 5 points into Tamario. And the main reason you want this is to boost your damage and boost all of your overdrive stats by 100%, which pretty much doubles it. And you also want the point in Soltado. Only 1 point in Soltado. You'll notice in the tree that I don't have any points in Soltado. That's because it's bugged currently, so that you don't need any points in this as long as you have the devastating dancer. Now, for the shield, I do have the super soldier. It's very strong. When the shield is full, it grants an overshield, and it also grants higher fire rate, higher movement speed, and regenerates ammo, which is very useful, especially for the pistol that we're going to be throwing every couple seconds. Now, I also have power and health boosters. These do help a ton for survivability, as well as anything that adds damage is good. Now, finally, I do have a Jacob's enhancement, and this one is going to be the sequencer. It doesn't help a ton. It mostly helps with the gun damage, and the critical damage modification is huge on this. I highly recommend it. Now, I will talk about the firmware real quick as they have been popping up. I do have 3 into Deadeye, mostly for the critical hit stacking, although the critical damage and accuracy are not anything to scoff at. As well as that, I have 2 points into Rubber Band Man, which is just nice for the lifesteal. It helps survivability. I don't go in a fight for your life very often, and when I do, it's typically when someone deals enough damage to knock me down instantly. Now let's go over the build. We are ignoring the blue and the red skill tree. However, we are using the Peacebreaker cannons, which I will set right here. We are using Instinto, and we are using Double Auto Shot. And I will explain those in a second. So starting off, we have 5 points in the Sitiar, which increases our gun damage by 25%. This is just a passive boost. This is not boosted by Overdrive. We will get more into that in a second. We also have 5 points into Huerga, which restores our critical hit duration whenever we critically hit an enemy. This ties in with Instinto, as the Peacebreakers can constantly proc critical hits, which constantly keep the duration restored. Now, along with this, I actually spec'd that a little bit wrong, which just ruined my entire build. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Now, I believe this is what I had before. If it's not, I'll notice it later and I'll deal with it then. But this build isn't hyper-specific. There are a few stats that are very important to have. However, as long as you have what you need to specifically have, you should be fine. It's mainly based around the gun and the Peacebreakers. So along with this, we also have 2 points into Resiliencia, which offsets the damage taken from Devil May Care. We also have increased skill damage, which is going to be boosted a little bit by asymmetric warfare, as far as I'm aware. Now, asymmetric warfare is very important, as any projectiles not fired directly from the gun are increased in damage. Now, this helps a ton, because your action skill weapons, the Peacebreakers, are going to increase in damage, as well as thrown weapons and the projectiles not fired from your gun do include ricochets. So with those, combined with lateral plinking, with the ricochets, as well as ricocheting off of King's Gambit, you're basically going to see bullets fly around the screen and all of the enemies disappear. It's very fun. Now, I recommend the lifesteal. You can put these 2 points into something else if you aren't a fan of lifesteal, or if you have a good enough shield. Depends on your role. I also have points into Errant Spark, and I actually believe I have 4 points into Errant Spark. And this is going to deal bonus fire damage, which actually just increases the amount of damage over time and increases the lifesteal as well. So along with that, we also have Vitriol, which just helps get us some bonus corrosive damage. We also have Pain Reaction, so that your bullets are going to ricochet even more because you're building up Vitriol and Errant Spark stacks on enemies. Now, here's where it gets a little bit more important. Barrage, actually, I lied. This is less important, but it's better than Everdrive, my apologies, because the splash damage can be helped on the Wombo combo. And the Wombo, while you're using Soltado, actually helps a ton when stacking with Barrage, because it will deal huge amounts of splash damage from the rockets, which will constantly keep everything rolling. Now, along with that, we also have Temerario, which is going to decrease your weapon handling. You need to be good at aiming. But you don't have to aim a whole lot, seeing as the ricochets automatically go towards nearby enemies. So handling is a little bit less important, especially because the Peacebreakers have auto aim. Now, concentrated build-up's not that important. It just increases some of your shock damage while you're aiming in. And Devil May Care is also important, as you gain movement speed and health regeneration, both of which are good. And increased action skill cooldown rate increased by 12% when Overdrive isn't active, which takes, I believe, about 2 seconds off from the time, which means those 3 hits of the triple bypass are going to turn around and help even more. Now, along with that, we also have the point into Soltado from the Dancer mod. We also have an extra point into Tamario, which I actually did not account for when I was redoing this tree. So this would be actually a 5 out of 5, and this is a 4 out of 5. And we still are using all of our points. Now, the Dancer class mod I have in particular also increases 2 points in... Now, I believe Sustainable Energy is one of them, and I believe the other is fire rate, increasing your fire rate, which just is going to make sure that you are throwing this gun even more. Now, we're going to get into the specializations, and then I will show you guys some gameplay. Now, I'm going to have 20 points into Survivor, 20 points into Brute, and this is going to increase gun damage and increase our health and shields. Now, increased damage reduction helps a ton, as does increased damage dealt. Along with that, we also have the points into Brute, which are going to give us access to CQC, which actually I am going for a different grenade mod. I'm going for the Slippy, but I need to farm that. That's going to help a ton as well for our fire rate. And then I have points into enough for Riddle You This, which if you get 50 stacks, you are dealing 50% more gun damage, which is multiplicative of everything else in the tree, or additive, I should say. Now, that is going to increase your gun damage by an extra 50%, which is insane, but it also, for some reason, stacks with the Peace Breakers. Now, I am speccing a little bit into Sharpshooter, and I'm going to spec into Runner as well, because I'm hoping to get Now with Caffeine, which is going to help even more with those rep kits replacing some of our action skill cooldown. So there's the build, and I will get into some gameplay and we will check this out. Now, as you can see, the idea of the build is to float the weapons towards your target, specifically their crit points or wherever the Peace Breakers are focused, and you want to keep throwing more guns in that direction in order to keep the flow going. This will melt many bosses. It's good for mobbing as well, as it'll kill enemies you didn't even know were there. This build is insane. I've not done an exact damage calc on it, but most variations can kill Idolater's Soul, a particularly beefy boss, in around 10 seconds. I do have trouble with the Primordial Guardian Timekeeper only because of his stupid grapple phase. This build isn't bad against flying enemies, but I will say it doesn't do particularly well, and you may want to try a different build like a Ceramic Bod, an Apophis Lance build, or even one of the many Chaosan builds floating around. It's also not too good against Shadow Pelt, as its invincibility makes the cannons and ricochets not target him until the shield is down. This is why it can be helpful to have a Shock Wombo combo. Anyways, that's the build, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Borderlands 4 content, and I will see you in the next one.